Not a good thing.
Another blow to the implementation of Obamacare. In our nation's capital, where the law was made, the people behind the Washington, D.C. exchange say they will not be ready come Tuesday for the October 1 deadline. So is the health care law falling apart under its own weight? And should Republicans allow it just to happen? Alan West, former U.S. Congressman for the state of Florida, Fox News contributor. Sir, good morning to you. I see you're back in Washington, D.C. Listen to what Mitch McConnell said about this whole debate on Obamacare.
I think it's pretty safe to conclude that things that can't work don't stick, don't last, because we are, after all, a representative democracy. People complain and discuss. I don't think this law can possibly stand. It's pretty hard to predict exactly the day upon which it ends, but it's cracking.
What do you think?
Well, I have to agree with Senator McConnell on some stances, but I would look at it this way. There are some things that the American people certainly know are heinous. When you look at the fact that the president has delayed several parts of the Affordable Care Act, one of the most important things, I think, is the employer mandate. Well, then we should delay the individual mandate as well, because we see the American people truly suffering in these economic times. When you look at the nearly 2,000 waivers and exemptions that have been granted, that's a sign of Washington, D.C. cronyism. That's something else that we should make sure is rescinded. When you think about the cuts to Medicare, when you think about the hiring of 16,000 new IRS agents, especially when we find out we're going to be paying Lois Lerner's retirement, those are the type of points that I think that we should say this law should be equal for every single American.
So do you... Yeah, understood. But do you believe that it will collapse under its own weight, as McConnell was just arguing there?
Yeah, we see it happening, but I think that if it is a law, it should be able to stand on its own. It should not have these waivers and exemptions, to include the exemptions that you see up here on Capitol Hill for members of Congress and the staff.
To that point, though, should folks like Ted Cruz and others step to the side and allow the law to show the vulnerabilities it already has shown?
Well, I think that he has shown a lot of the vulnerabilities, and I think that what he did was very commendable. It was very honorable. That's what we send senators and members of the House to Washington, D.C. to speak for the American people, speak for their constituents, bring out the problems with, certain policy and certain aspects of politics. So I think that he did a very good service for the American people. Now, as a military guy, I will tell you this. When you are in a situation where you are somewhat numerically outnumbered, you have to fight on a narrow front. And I believe that now, if you can be very specific about the things that you believe should be rescinded as part of the Affordable Care Act, and use the president's own language of delay.
So then what specifically would you focus on then? What's the target?
The target for me would be, if I was over there, would be to say, Mr. President, since you have delayed the employer mandate and other things, we should delay the individual mandate. We should rescind these nearly 2,000 waivers and exemptions that have been granted to your friends and cronies. We should not have any exemptions for members of Congress and also our staffs. We should have a verification for people that are going to enter exchanges for subsidies. We should not have cuts to Medicare, and we should not fund these 16,000 IRS agents. That's where we want to stand.
That's a lot now. That's a lot, and the calendar's running here.
I don't think that's a lot. I think that those are the things that the American people clearly understand that they detest about the Affordable Care Act. And look, the medical device tax, this is nothing more than a tax law. That's all it is, 20 to 21 new taxes, and that's not something the American people need right now.
You mentioned the waivers and the exemptions. We'll show our viewers, just the number that we've tracked down already. You have the Medicare cuts, the employer mandate delayed, subsidy verification delayed, out-of-pocket caps delayed. You've got 2,000 businesses and unions with a waiver. Congress is going to get the subsidies for themselves and their staff members unless that changes. Yeah. Wow.
And that's where I think you start. I think if you want to have a law, it should be an equal playing field, and the executive branch should not be allowed to cherry pick, because that's not part of the separation of the powers and the balance, the separation of powers that we have here.
Senator Rand Paul was making a bigger point this week. He said when the bills start coming into the state level, they're going to crumble under the weight of the cost. Now, do states realize that yet?
I think some states do realize that. There's a lot of the unintended consequences that are going to come down the pike. Look, when you've got James Hoffa Jr. and the unions writing letters to Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid saying that, you need to fix this thing, everyone realizes that we're going down the wrong path. Now, the president can, continue to, show his ego and not want to correct this and fix this for the American people. And I think, as Stuart Varney said, he's the chief executive officer, and he needs to show some leadership at this point in time and show that he doesn't believe that this is going to be a success come October the 1st. And so that's why I think it's important for people, upon principle, to stand up and bring out these points.
Alan West, thank you for coming in. We're going to watch this state-level story, too, because, I mean, really, the weight of the cost could be phenomenal. So we're going to watch that story. And we're also going to try and figure out how many uninsured Americans are left under the law itself. Remember, it's supposed to cover everybody.
Millions. It still will be millions.
Based on all the projections right now, the CBO says 30 million uninsured for at least 10 more years. So we'll see. Alan West, thank you again for your time there in
Thanks
Washington.
for having me, Bill.